Capricorn, and welcome to Pandora Astrology's monthly horoscope for June of 2022. We are the astrologers of Pandora Astrology. I'm Jamie Kale Miller. I'm in Berkeley, California.
And I'm Julia Mijas in Pioneer, California.
Well, Capricorn, this month's horoscope is all over the map for you. If this horoscope brings up questions, we have answers, and you can get a more in-depth look in a natal and transit reading where we can more thoroughly discuss your financial situation, work life, creativity, and relationships, all in the same reading. You'll find a link for that in the YouTube description below. Well, let's get into it, Capricorn. Here at the beginning of the month, I want to tell you about some slow-moving, long-term transits, beginning with your favorite planet and mine, Saturn, which is your ruling planet, which is why it's really important to check in with every once in a while. Saturn is moving along through Aquarius this year, which is your second house, and Saturn will generally spend 2.5 years moving through a house. This is the house of money. This is the house of finances and values and the things that keep you in your body, like your eating and your your self-care habits and systems. So Saturn in any house, it will bring the feeling of pressure and the need for discipline and structure. It will often bring us a feeling of our own limitations and constrictions. So it can be a little bit depressing when Saturn moves into a house. And the important thing is to respond with vigor and bootstrap yourself, take it on, and do that discipline in that area. And that's what brings relief from a Saturn transit. So if Saturn is telling you that you need to tighten up your budget, then you'd better do that. If Saturn is telling you you need to curb your spending, then you better do that. And it's really important to do that while Saturn is here. And then when Saturn leaves, you may finish this transit with a much better financial situation because you did the work. The other Neptune transit I want to talk about is Neptune, which makes much longer transits. It usually spends an average of 14 years moving through a given house. Right now it's in your third house, and there's really no telling how long it's been there in a horoscope alone. And the same is true with Saturn. I said that Saturn is in your second house, but I can't tell you without looking at your own specific chart that's specific to your birth date and time. That's what I need to be able to tell you exactly when these things began and when they finish. But I do want to tell you about their tone and how to handle them. So whatever house Neptune is in, it tends to bring confusion and mystery, but also a yearning to live up to a higher ideal in this area. And Neptune has been moving along through your third house for at least a decade. And this is a house of communication. It's also a house of your immediate environment. So your relationships with your neighbors, housemates, or siblings would be included in this house. And so Neptune can idealize, but also muddy the waters relative to its house. And really what you need to do is figure out, what does your spiritual guidance tell you about how to behave with these people in your life, your neighbors or your siblings or your housemates? And you can bring those relationships up closer to your spiritual ideal by listening to the whispered guidance of your greater self. Now, the last thing I want to hint at here is Jupiter, which has just entered your fourth house and will be there for much of the year. And this is the house of home and family. I talked about it a lot more last month, but suffice it to say that Jupiter brings luck and wonderful things wherever it goes. And so your home life is looking at some wonderful improvements and some really great feels. So I recommend that you check last month's horoscope to find out more about that. Also, our Jupiter in Aries video, which you can find in our May news playlist, and our 2022 year playlist as well. Hey, Julia, what's up for the Capricorns of the world in the realms of Mercury, Venus, and Mars?
Well, definitely some good things to look forward to, Capricorn. Number one, Mercury is going to go direct pretty early on this month too. And it's Mercury retrograde happens about 3 times a year, and the bulk of the cycle happened last month. So if you do want to hear more about it, I definitely recommend that you check out last month's video. But in terms of this month, Mercury starts the month retrograde in your 5th house. The 5th house, I'm going to talk a little bit about that because there's some 5th house activity for you this month. It's like the most fun house probably out of all 12. It represents places of amusements like theaters, clubs, casinos. It represents what you do for fun, your diversions. It represents sports and games and creativity as well. The 5th house is also your children, and it can represent dating too. So by June 3rd, Mercury's been retrograde in this house, which means that you may have had a lot of miscommunications with your children. Possibly this has been a time of having to review any creative projects you're a part of, or anything that you do for fun in general. But by the 3rd, Mercury's going to go direct in this house, which is definitely going to make things a lot better. And then by the 13th, Mercury's going to jump into your 6th house. This is a work house, and it also represents kind of like all of your routines and rituals in life, like brushing your teeth, taking medicine, going to the gym, the day-to-day operations of your job. And it's also a health house too. So with Mercury in the 6th, I actually really like Mercury in the 6th. It's a really good time to get organized. And usually, organization isn't the most fun thing in the world, but when Mercury's in the 6th, it's like your mind can just kind of see everything clearly, how you want to necessarily reorganize your kitchen cabinets, or maybe some of your work resources. But it's a wonderful time for just getting all sort of buttoned up in those areas of life. And it's also a time where you might be thinking a lot about your health. Maybe you're thinking about your health strategy. Should I go on a diet? Should I try a new doctor? But your mind might also be thinking about how you can sort of best support your health too, which can definitely be very helpful. Good news on Venus as well, because Venus starts the month and spends the first about 3 weeks in your 5th house. And I mentioned earlier, the 5th is the house of dating. Venus is the love planet. So this is a wonderful time for single Capricorns, because Venus is adding a little extra dating luck for you. So definitely try some dating apps or ask your friends if they know anyone single, because this is a very good time for that. It's also a wonderful time for getting along well with your kids, especially if you've had some miscommunications recently. Good time to just sort of smooth things over and have a lot of fun in general. If you are with a partner, then this is a lovely transit just for you guys to kind of get out there and do something fun together. And really, it's sort of like the couple that plays together, stays together transit in some way. Then on June 22nd, Venus enters your 6th house, joining Mercury. And when Venus is in the 6th, the 6th house is a very practical house. And Venus is kind of a romantic planet, but it can be a really good time for getting along well with the people you work with, maybe getting a crush on somebody at work if you're single. And Venus in the 6th house can be a positive transit for health too, but with one exception, and that's that Venus likes to indulge, and the 6th house is our routines and, our sense of being regimented. So sometimes Venus in the 6th means that you might want to indulge a little bit on your routines. Maybe if you are on a diet, you just kind of want to take a little break from it or something. But other than that, Venus in the 6th does give a little boost to your health in general. And a few things I have to say about Mars. Mars is, he's very different than Venus. Venus is known as a benefic, so she brings kind of luck and pleasure. Mars is a little bit more challenging, but Mars is also very important and can also be very constructive as well. So Mars is going to be hanging out in your 4th house all month. This is the house of family and home. It represents your physical house, whether that's an apartment, whether that's a house that you live in. And Mars is the planet of action and drive. So your action, your activity, there's going to be a lot of, action going on at home this month. Now, Mars in the 4th can be a wonderful time for doing home projects. If there's a room that needs painting, if there's some kitchen thing that needs fixing, Mars is really, really good to just getting out a lot of stuff at home. It can be also a great transit for working out at home too. If you need to set up a little gym or just do some routines at home. But Mars in the 4th can be a bit challenging at times because since it's the planet of conflict and the fourth house represents family, sometimes this means that you're really not seeing eye to eye with your family members, or maybe even the people you're living with. Like if you have a roommate, maybe they're really annoying you a lot, or maybe you guys are disagreeing about stuff. Maybe somebody's playing their music too loud and waking you up at night, that kind of stuff. But, you know, Mars does have a very constructive purpose here. So get out that energy and fix things up at home.
That's a great solution. So there are a couple of moons to talk about. The first one is the full moon in Sagittarius, which falls in the 12th house for you, opposite the sun in the 6th. Full moons always create this feeling of polarity, a dichotomy, and can pull you in two different directions. The sun is pulling your attention towards your workplace and being more organized there, while the moon is pulling you emotionally into solitude and is saying, rest is important, sleep is important, unstructured time is important. Getting some of that during this full moon would be pretty important to do, especially because this moon involves a square to Neptune, which is probably going to throw some confusion into the mix. This moon, we're calling it avoid delusion, head for intellectual solid ground. And that's because this particular moon with its square to Neptune can bring confusion, mystery, muddy the waters, and that confusion is sort of rendered more emotional because this is a moon, after all, that we're talking about. But there's a lovely trine that Saturn has to the sun and a sextile to the moon, and that brings a grounding quality to this. And that Saturn being in an air sign really helps too. So there is a path to a more logical response to this moon. The next thing I want to point to is that the sun is going to leave Gemini and move on into Cancer. So we have the change of seasons right here on June 21st. And wherever the sun goes, you want to shine the sunlight of your high quality attention, because just like sunlight, your attention can help things to thrive and grow when you cast it upon a particular area of life. The sun moving into the 7th house suggests that that arena is relationships, partnerships. So paying some high quality attention to the partners that you have in your life, whether that is a spouse or a business partner, a collaborator at work, or even just a bestie, putting some high quality attention on those people is really going to lead to the relationship thriving while the sun is on its 30-day journey along through your 7th house. Then the last thing I want to tell you about is the moon, the new moon at the end of the month right here in Cancer in your 7th house. And that again, I don't know why it does that, really annoying. That again brings, brings your attention into the realm of relationships. The moon, when it's new, brings new beginnings, planting of seeds. And so it's a good time to plant seeds of loving kindness and warmth. That's what Cancer is all about in your relationships, which is what the 7th house is all about. Now, you may find that this moon brings a mood that is more boisterous than usual, possibly a little bit more blunt and forceful than usual, and that would be because of the involvement of Jupiter. But Vesta is here, forming a lovely trine to the moon and the sun, and helping to kind of smooth things out and calm things down with the introduction of a little compassion and empathy. And you can find out a lot more about these moons in our June 2022 news playlist on our YouTube channel, Pandora Astrology, or just navigate over to pandoraastrology.com and check our monthly forecast page, where you will find all those same videos as well. And you can get a reading on our site in the readings tab, or find a class in the classes tab. And until next time, we'll see you around the cosmos. Bye-bye.
Bye.